Hey everybody, welcome to my garage. Now, if you have been keeping tabs with the industry over the last couple of years, you will notice that the middleweight naked bike category has become one of the most important really for any of the sports manufacturers out there. Now, the last 4 days, we have been riding around on these 4 bikes. 4 different types of riders, 4 different skill sets, 4 different motorcycles, 4 different arguments. So without further ado, let's get into it. Right, to kick things off for this 2025 middleweight naked bike shootout, this is the 2025 Kawasaki Z900 SE ABS. The SE means that you get the Öhlins shock, the S46 shock, which has been on a bunch of different bikes now from Kawasaki for quite a while. So I think Kawasaki personally probably has a world supply of S46 shocks. New for this year, revamped engine, revamped electronics, all the good stuff, revamped chassis, revamped riding position, well, that's important too. Now, going against bikes like the KTM, the Yamaha, the Triumph, which are all more sporty bikes, the Kawasaki is a little bit harder against it, depending on what you're after. Now, if all you're after is commuting bike, you're probably going to find this one is the go. The base suspension is pretty soft. Thanks to that S46 shock, you've got a remote preload adjuster, so you can fix that up a little bit. However, the 4 testers all kind of agreed that the ergonomics on the new Kawasaki were really not that enjoyable. I'll show you quickly now. I've got a 32-inch inseam, and this gap from the seat to the peg to the seat is really uncomfortable after a while. It's got a really high-rise tank as well, so this is actually all right for short rides, but for longer rides, the ergonomics really didn't make a lot of sense, and all of us really kind of agreed that we didn't get enough blood flow down our legs, which made for a fairly uncomfortable ride. Electronics wise, you get cruise control, cornering ABS, all that good stuff, variable power modes, so that's the thing with all these bikes too, they've all got all these modes and stuff now, so we're not going to delve too much into it. Like, they've all got varying traction control and all that stuff, so nothing too much to write home about with the Kawasaki. One thing that everybody agreed on was how much we all love that engine. Like, that 900 engine has got so much grunt, and it sounds bitchin'. It's got a huge induction roar, matched to a really nice quick shift as well. However, overall, it just doesn't have the razor sharpness that this category now kind of demands. Compared to a couple of years ago, mind you, this bike would have been great. I mean, I remember 10 years ago, I remember testing the Z1000 and just loved it. This bike feels so much like it, it's not funny. I mean, ergonomics feels fairly similar. Engine feels about the same as well. I mean, like, that's proved just how much the middleweight class has got so close to that 5-10 years ago 1000cc superbike, 1000cc naked bike class. Obviously now when you get stuff like BMW M1000RRs and KTM 1290 Super Dukes or 1390 Super Dukes, that stuff then has taken another leap forward again. So, but everything's moved up with the middleweight class. On the plus side, I personally loved the green frame, the green wheels. I think they just look awesome. Nathan, on the other hand, hated them. And so each to their own. We've all got varying opinions on the styling and that kind of stuff. I'm not personally a fan of the headlight, although it didn't annoy me as much as the KTM, I've got to say. I think as an aesthetic, I don't mind the look at it. It is incredibly Kawasaki, got to say. It's not like you're going to ever see a Triumph painted like this. And the Triumph, for that matter, is very black, or at least that particular colour that we rode is very black, so it's kind of hard to tell that it even is a Triumph. Just a little piece. We weighed all the bikes. We filled them to the absolute brim, and we chucked them on our scales. Kawasaki claims 471 pounds fully fueled, and we weighed it at 471 pounds with a tank of fuel. I've been doing this job for 18 years. I cannot tell you the last time that a manufacturer got it absolutely spot on and didn't BS you at all in terms of what the weight is. So good job on Kawasaki for that one. However, you do feel that weight in the corners. You are, especially when you're jumping off other bikes like the Triumph and the KTM and things like that extra girth really does stand out. Makes it pretty solid sort of mid-corner, I guess, but it's also paired with very, very soft suspension. So that's something to take into consideration as well. Of course, you can then go in and start playing around with suspension settings and try and get the thing to be a bit more taut in the chassis. But you know, that's for another time. With the Kawasaki, the new Z900, you get the new dash as well. It's relatively easy-ish to navigate, although mind you, there is so much information in all these bikes now that it does become a bit bamboozling, I've got to say. But it is easier to operate than the previous dash, so, and it does have a really nice appearance too. It's definitely upgraded the perception of the bike compared to what the old 800 was, for example. But yeah, I think overall, like if you're going to go for a commuter bike, this will probably be the one that you're going to go for. But if you're going to go after fun and really rip into what this category is really about now, you're probably going to want to look elsewhere. Right, so if it's a sporty naked you're after in the middleweight class, this is the one you're going to go for. This is the Triumph 765 RS Street Triple. Now, I have been a huge fan of this bike forever because it is basically a super sport bike without a fairing. This is the bike that they take and they put on the track. It's won the Daytona 200 a couple of times. It's now winning world super sport races. Having said that, this is an interesting bike compared to some of the bikes that we've got on test. Main thing is it sits on its nose. You are much more on its nose compared to something like the Yamaha MT-09 SP, for example. It has the highest seat height, 32.9 inches. It also has the most horsepower. It's got the least amount of torque, which is kind of surprising given that Triumph has kind of banked on that whole persona of the most torque. But it's much more a race bike than any of these other bikes out there, and you got to take that into consideration with kind of everything that's about this motorcycle. You get the best brakes, at least in my opinion, with this MCS master cylinder and Brembo calipers. The braking is the best out of all the bikes that we've had on test. We could basically all agree on that. Nathan, however, didn't quite like as much a direct feel as what those brakes give, because this master cylinder is a much higher grade than what some of the other stuff is on test. Being that this bike is now kind of a bit more on its nose, it's not that comfortable over really, really long rides. Like yesterday especially, we had 11 full hours on the bikes yesterday, just swapping, changing. And I've got to say, like, when you're getting out there and you're really going for it, this is the bike you want to be on. However, if you're just cruising around and we're just rolling through towns and things like that, yeah, maybe the Yamaha might be a little bit better especially for taller riders. The Yamaha is going to be a little bit more comfortable. In terms of sports naked bikes, this is the one. The gear shift on it is lovely. The brakes are excellent. The chassis is just pinpoint. Like, it loves getting into corners and ripping through. It's got one of the highest, I guess, excitement values. Like, every one of us could sit down and we're all waxing lyrical about it. And the price as well. Price is very good. It's the second most expensive bike here on test. However, you do get a decent amount of stuff for your money. What you don't get is you don't get cruise control, which is a bit of a bummer. The KTM also doesn't come standard with cruise control. That comes as part of the tech pack as well. So that was a little bit of a ding on the KTM versus the Triumph. The Triumph being one of the sportiest, it's also on the lightest out there. Now let's have a guess and see how close Triumph got to their claimed wet weight. Full tank of fuel, we weighed it at 420 pounds on the dot. Triumph claimed 416. So not too bad from Triumph. You know, that's only a few pounds difference, and you know, I'll let them off the hook for that one. Yeah, nice and light, super nimble, great braking performance, really good engine, a bit more of a peakier engine than something like the Yamaha, for example. It sort of takes a bit to get going, especially for a triple engine, but that then leads it into the ethos of what this bike is. You know, it is a super sport bike. Triumph really sort of hit the nail on the head in terms of, I guess, aggression mixed with style and persona, I guess. That's one thing that the Triumph's got over pretty much everything. It has a real panache about it, which I really enjoyed, and so did the other three testers on this one. So very good bike from Triumph. It's now one of the oldest bikes in the category already. I can't believe it. It's only been out 2.5 years, and it's one of the oldest ones in the category. So interesting from Triumph, but no, don't expect it to get renewed anytime soon, because it is such a bloody good bike and it's being used to a devastating effect in racing. And personally for me, I love racing and I'm leaning towards this one, but we don't know if that one's going to be the winner just yet. Now before I go on guys, I just want to give a quick shout out to Quadlock for sponsoring today's video. Now unless you guys have been living under a rock for the last few years, you will know that Quadlock has been in every form of racing. We've seen them in Baja, Dakar, Supercross, Motocross, MotoGP, all over the place. So big sponsors of racing all around the world, and I'm really pleased that they've jumped on to give us a bit of a hand here at Cycle News. Personally, I've been using this phone case and this phone mount, which is the single one-piece handlebar mount set for the last year or so. I've also got the steering stem mount, which works on clip-on handlebar bikes as well, which is really, really handy when I'm jumping from bike to bike when I'm testing. Couldn't recommend these guys highly enough, so please get out there and show a bit of love to the people that make these videos possible. Thanks again to Quadlock for sponsoring today's video. Right, now we're into one of our favorite bikes here at Cycle News. This is the Yamaha MT-09 SP. I have spent probably the best part of 6-7 months riding this bike, so I know very well what it's like. It's also very interesting hearing the comments of Nathan, Brendan and Ryan, all varying levels as to what they liked, what they didn't like about the MT-09. Out of the 4 bikes on test, this is the second cheapest bike out there, which is a very good tick for Yamaha, especially when you consider what you get out of it. Everything you get is standard on the MT-09 SP. So you've got cruise control, you've got 5 modes, you've got traction control, slide control. It's got more electronics in this than pretty much all the other bikes out there, which is really, really cool. These are pretty much the same electronics that you're going to get on your R1, which is pretty amazing when you consider the price point for this motorcycle. The Yamaha also won a few points for the fact that you do have all those electronics, but it's also quite easy to navigate through the dash. So kudos to Yamaha for that, because these things are such a mind in terms of electronics and how to adjust them. Everyone has a different answer to a similar problem, and it can get really, really confusing, but Yamaha's done quite well there. The MT-09 SP CP3 engine is a known quantity, and we all loved it. It's a real ripper of an engine, and it has a big kick at 5,000 RPM, but that is purely down mainly to emissions. Now this bike, more than any other bike on test, we noticed had the biggest flat spot around that time. It is that big kick. Some guys loved it. I personally found it a little bit more, it wasn't as linear as what I would have hoped. This engine definitely seems to be hurt a bit more from the emissions than say the Triumph and even the Kawasaki. So that was a bit of a mark against the bike. Out of the 4 bikes on test, we all agreed that if you were just going to have one bike to do it all, and that means sport riding on the weekends, rolling to work, all that kind of stuff, this is probably the one you're going to go for, especially when you consider the price. The value for money out of the Yamaha is just outstanding. When you get on the throttle and you really start to wick that thing up, you will begin to notice the ethos of the chassis. Now, this is much more of a street bike than, say, something like the 765 RS, which is basically a race bike without a fairing. The chassis does tend to get a little bit kind of light on its feet when you're really under hard acceleration. It raises up on its rebound and then just kind of like floats there. It doesn't really feel that planted. It doesn't have as nice a suspension action as what you get on the KTM. The KTM is much more planted, especially when you start to really wind the thing up. But when you take it back and you're riding at, say, 70% or so, suspension action is good. Bump absorption is quite nice. It has a 32.5-inch seat height, so that's the same as the KTM, but it's much higher than, say, something like on the Kawasaki, which is 31.9. So you do get to have a little bit more movement in your legs. I'll show you quickly what I mean. So hopping on, you don't get quite as much of a bend in your knees, so longer rides are much more enjoyable on the Yamaha. One thing that isn't enjoyable in the Yamaha, and I just remembered it, is this bloody thing, this proximity key and this ignition barrel. I don't know who thought this ignition barrel was going to be a good idea, because it spins around, and I get it, you've got off and on and steering lock, but it never seems to go on. It took me about a minute to get the thing fired up yesterday when we were doing our lunch stop, which was just infuriating. But I've always said I hated proximity keys, and this one just solidified my opinion. Braking power from the Brembo equipped front end on the Yamaha is very good, although that master cylinder doesn't have a lot of feel to it. It is, you can adjust the range on it, but on the lever, but it doesn't give you a great feel like you get with something like the Triumph, for example. However, we all did agree that the Yamaha has got pretty much the best gear shifter out of the lot. That quick shifter on the Yamaha is pinpoint, and I love that. That's really good. So Yamaha has done quite well there. The MT-09 SP suspension is quite good, although as we were saying before, it does tend to ride up a little bit in its stroke, particularly when you get under real hard acceleration. Öhlins rear shock with remote preload adjuster, so happy days there. I mean, that should be, if you've got a decent shock in your bike, you should have a remote preload adjuster. You shouldn't have to bring screwdrivers and hammers and all that kind of stuff to make sure the bike handles properly. The four of us on test found the styling fairly polarizing, as pretty much all these bikes, but especially the Yamaha. I mean, I don't particularly mind it. I don't particularly hate it. Ryan loved it. Nathan didn't love it. You know, Brandon didn't mind it either. But it's not one of those bikes, especially the front, it's not one of those bikes that really people are drawn to and they really love. Aesthetically, you know, I love the wheels. I think the wheels and the way that kind of the paint blends in is very nice. I mean, I remember first seeing that stuff on the Yamaha R1 a bunch of years ago and thought it looked good. I still think it looks good. Yamaha has had the MT-09 platform in production now for the best part of 12 years. It is a really good bike. They have smoothed out all the creases and all the little imperfections, that most of them at least, that the Yamaha MT-09 had in the SP. The value for money you're getting out of the Yamaha, it's pretty astounding. I mean, this has got everything. You don't need to upgrade anything. You don't need to add cruise control. You don't need to add traction control. So what you pay for is what you get, which is really good from Yamaha. If you're going to go and do one bike for all, and that means get out there to do some canyon riding, ride to the shops, put the other half on the back of the bike, whatever it is, this is probably going to be the one that you're going to go for. But is it the best? So here we come to the hot rod of the bunch. This is the KTM 990 Duke. Now, I've ridden this bike for the last year or so, and I love the thing. I've been a big convert of KTM Dukes for a long time. And so did the other testers, to be honest. We all agreed that this is probably the most fun bike. Like, if you're going to go out there and you're just buying it purely just to put a big fat smile on your face when you get on it, the Duke's probably your bike. It's got the most ruckus engine. It punches out of corners. You know, it looks angry as hell. None of us, mind you, could agree on that headlight. I don't know. So none of us like that. The 947cc parallel twin motor is a gem. It's so good, you know, and it's mixed with a gear shifter, which funnily enough was very polarizing in our test. I personally loved it, but other guys didn't, and I liked it because it was that direct, hard, fast, short throw shift, which is very race bikey. Other riders on the test, namely Ryan and Brandon as well, didn't like it as much because it doesn't love just low speed, low RPM quick shifts. It's not. It'll do it, don't worry, but it's not as smooth as something like you're going to get on the Yamaha, for example. But when you're on the throttle and you're really pounding through the gears on this thing, it's pop, pop, pop. It's really, really cool. I really enjoy it. Seat height is the same as what you're going to get on the Yamaha at 32.5 inches. Conversely, though, it feels very different because it's much more of a plank seat out of the KTM. So that means over long rides, it's not going to be as comfy as what you're going to get on something like the Yamaha, but it's definitely more comfortable for the majority of us, at least on test, than say the Kawasaki with its much lower seat and taller pegs, which gave you a bit more of a cramped leg position. We'll show you quickly when I hop on. Again, 32-inch inseam for me. I find it probably the most comfortable in terms of leg bend, and you can get a decent amount of blood flow going. What I didn't love was, and we all agreed on this too, was these foot pegs are really stumpy and short. Like your foot's half hanging off. I mean, I know I'm wearing running shoes at the moment, but I can kind of understand it because I know they're trying to make the bike nice and slim. But if you've got wide feet, that's definitely going to provide you with a bit of a problem. The WP Apex suspension that resides in the Duke, you know, WP is a KTM-owned company, and it basically feels like the rest of the bike feels. It's hard. You know, it's designed to be ridden hard. It's not terribly comfortable over just, you know, cruising around, things like that. But when you wick it up, on the other hand, it has more composure and is more pinpoint almost than pretty much all the bikes on test, save maybe for the Triumph. You know, the Triumph is a super sport chassis and is a bit more flowing and direct, whereas this is a bit more of a bruiser. Having said that though, WP has given you only 5 adjustments on the fork, so that's great. I really enjoy that, because when you do make a change on the suspension, you really do feel the difference. It's not like, you know, a couple of clicks here and that kind of stuff and makes a big difference. This here, like, you take 1 click of compression and you will feel the difference. So that's really good, especially if you're trying to learn how suspension feels when you change it. Now, unfortunately, with the KTM, unlike the Yamaha, what you see is not exactly what you get. So KTM loaded this bike up with their tech pack. That gives you the quick shifter, it gives you an adaptive brake light, it gives you motor slip regulation, and also gives you cruise control. That's going to cost you an extra $1,000, and that does then become a bit more of a problem, especially when you consider bikes like the Kawasaki are less than 12 grand. This pushes the price over 13 grand MSRP, and then you've got to add in your dealer delivery fees and all that kind of stuff, and that can be a little bit of an issue if you're on a budget. If the money isn't a problem and you just want something that's just gonna make you go yeah, then whatever, go and get that stuff. And you will want that stuff, by the way, as well. You want to have a quick shifter, you want to have a cruise control switch. I don't care what people say, man, cruise control on a motorcycle is awesome. User experience wise, with the 5-inch dash, is not too bad. It's not as intuitive as something like the Yamaha, for example. It's got all the same stuff that all the other bikes have got, you know, varying ride modes, traction control, wheelie control, all that stuff. KTM's done quite the evolution of their user experience. They haven't just gone and, it's like Kawasaki, for example, and just given you a whole new thing. This is something that if you've ever ridden a previous Duke, say from the last sort of 10 years or so, maybe not 10 years, maybe probably 7 years or so, you'll kind of have seen the way that the dash goes. So it's pretty easy to run. You've got your switches on the left here, not too bad overall, but probably not quite as intuitive as the Yamaha. So if you're buying a motorcycle just to put a smile on your face and nothing else, this is the one, man. This thing is just a riot of fun. We all loved it. Everyone from beginner road riders to expert level road riders, we all loved it. It's just a blast of a thing. It's probably not the most practical, but man, if you just want to have a laugh, this is the one. Okay, that's all 4 bikes ridden and tested in the 2025 Middleweight Naked Bike Shootout. Which one's the winner? Poof! Here we go. Your winner of the 2025 Middleweight Naked Bike Shootout, Yamaha's MT-09 SP. Now, despite the fact I still hate that ignition switch, I'm looking at it now, and we all hated that bloody ignition switch. This bike is the best, I guess, combination of everything that we've tested. All the bikes here that we've tested do something better than everything else. The Triumph has the best chassis, the KTM puts the biggest smile on your face in terms of just sheer brutiness. The Kawasaki's engine is superb, but none of them put it all together just like the Yamaha MT-09 SP. Fantastic value for money you get out of this bike. You get great dealer backup support. It's a really, really good bike. As we've said before, this bike Yamaha's had a long time to get this bike exactly right, and they've really done it with the MT-09 SP. So I don't think you're going to go wrong with any of the bikes on test. You know, if you're after the sporty bike, you're going to go for the Triumph. If you're after the bruiser, you're going to go for the KTM, regardless of whatever the price is. If you're after something that's a little bit kind of cool and funky and quirky, you're going to go for the Kawasaki with its beautiful 900 inline 4cc engine. But man, in terms of just overall one bike to do it all, this is the one to do it. Anyway, guys, I hope you guys have enjoyed it. Thank you very much for sticking around, and by all means, put those comments in the section below and I'll do my best to get back to you. Until next time, guys, keep a rubber side down. See you then. Bye.